monsters. Hollywood can't stop making movies about them, especially if you happen to be a giant monkey or maybe even an overgrown lizard. I am the Game Collector and this is Second Opinion Games, and today I put King Kong versus Godzilla in video games.
Second Opinion Games.
Rampage was the first video game I ever seen where you have a Godzilla character and a King Kong character destroying an entire town, and then you move on and destroy another one until the entire United States is in crumbles. However, this wasn't really King Kong. The monkey here is named George. I guess that's kind of a play on Curious George. And the giant lizard is named Lizzie. I guess they just don't have that much of an imagination. The army's always trying to take you down, and when they do finally kill you, well, you don't really die. You more or less just shrink back down to size and then slowly scoot your naked little self off of the screen. This was amazing the first time I saw it, because I have never seen any nudity in video game up to this point. Arguably, I still haven't, because you're just a little tiny thing. There's really not a whole lot going on here. So I couldn't wait to play as Lizzie, because that's a girl. You might actually get to see a girl naked, even with her little tiny bits. Oh my god, it was super exciting. Also, the way the army just continuously attacks these giant monsters is just plain quarter munching, because your health bar is always going down. There is no way that you could avoid all the sticks of dynamite that are being thrown at you and all of the gunfire. You can get some of your energy back if you eat some of the people though, and this was an epic good time, especially if you had two other friends to play with, because this was a 3-player game and definitely one that's suited for couch co-op. When Rampage World Tour came around, boy was I ever ready for it. I was floored by the claymation graphical art style, and the music in the background is just plain terrific. Also, eating people has never been so much fun. Of course, the army is always trying to ruin that good time, because they are still draining your life bar ever so fast. The buildings explode better than ever, and you better be jumping off them, because if they collapse while you're still attached, you're definitely gonna pay a high price. And this was a pretty darn good game, whether you're playing it on the good old PlayStation 1 or the Nintendo 64, I recommend trying it out. Also, the way your feet stomp into the side of the building and the whole thing just sort of warps off to the side, I love the graphical art style of this game through and through. Rampage Total Destruction was the absolute apex of the series. It was released for the PlayStation 2, the original Xbox, and even the GameCube. This time around, there are 30 different creatures that you could find as you destroy your way across the town, and each one of them can be leveled up with a few different upgrades. How do you get the upgrades? By completing missions. That's right, you actually have to think this time around. You can't just destroy buildings all willy-nilly, because sometimes you have to search in each one to find different things like chocolate bars. Other missions just have you running back and forth eating bikers or maybe eating SWAT team members. One of my favorite things about this game is the comical stuff that the characters say to you as you pick them up and throw them in your mouth. Like the one guy's a lawyer and says, "You can't do this, I'm a lawyer." And of course, you're gonna eat him anyway. There's also girls that seem to say some pretty weird things as you eat them. And when you die, your naked little self slowly scoots out of frame just to come back and do it all again. This is probably the best Rampage package that you could ever lay your hands on, and sadly, every time they tried to reboot the series after this, it just completely sucked. So just go with Rampage Total Destruction. It's definitely the best one. But if you couldn't get enough monsters destroying the town, well, check out King of Monsters 2 for the good old Neo Geo. Now this time around, they didn't want to make it super obvious with the giant lizard, so it looks a little bit like a lizard Godzilla and a dragon sort of combined. Graphics here look absolutely beautiful, but that was expected with the Neo Geo. Also, this isn't a full-on one-on-one fighting game. This is more like a destroy the town, side-scrolling, beat 'em up, and then it moves on to a one-on-one fighting game. However, this definitely feels like a quarter muncher because you just die repeatedly and always have to keep continuing in order to push your way through this game. Also, you continuously have to slap your hands down on the buttons as fast as you can in order to get up or maybe even perform a special move when you're locked in place with another fighter. So you're just going to be smashing those buttons a lot. It actually starts hurting your hands after a while. The big monkey here is a giant robot monkey, and he's the character I actually prefer to play with. His head smash move, where his head elongates and smashes into the crotch of your other enemies, just feels wrong, but boy does it ever do the trick to take down the other giant monsters in this universe. This is a fairly good game, but maybe you want to play with the real monsters themselves. Well, then check out Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee. Now here, you actually get to finally play as Godzilla himself, blowing apart the different monsters in his own universe. The sense of size here is tremendous, and the bass is thumping with nearly every step you make. Also, Godzilla feels like he is a ninja master here. This is one of those fighting games with a block button, so it's not really like Street Fighter controls. Also, it takes place in a 3D space, which allows you to get different power-ups that might be sprinkled on the map as you play through them. Boy, is it ever difficult, because even though you play as a ginormous monster, all of your punches and kicks only take a very limited amount of health away from your enemy, and sometimes the computer can just spam moves on you right and left. If you try and spam moves, it's just not gonna work. You have a special energy bar for your special moves that just don't let you pull them off more than one or two at a time, so you have to be patient when you play the game, and always make sure you pick up the special power-ups that are sprinkled along the map in order to win your rightful victory and declare yourself the true King of the Monsters. If you want to play a King Kong one-on-one fighting game, the closest I found was Primal Rage. This is the Atari Jaguar CD version, if you could believe that something like that actually exists here. Now, I am playing with the 6-button controller, which supposedly is the very best way to play this game. The frame rate is quite bad. You can play with the giant monkey called Chaos, and yeah, I could say that this actually feels like total chaos just trying to do this. Sometimes when I throw punches, they hit my enemy when he's even a quarter of the way across the screen, even if my punch itself is nowhere near him. Also, the only special move I could figure out how to do here is this shoulder dash thing, and yeah, it does a great job. You can spam the crap out of it and completely destroy all of your enemies. The background graphics are great, and the humans that you could eat and cheer you on along the way is definitely something I found interesting. There's also the much bigger big monkey here called Blizzard, and this is like if Sub-Zero was a giant monkey. The freeze here doesn't really mean that much if it just means you have to walk up and hit them with the same basic move that you would be normally hitting them with, so that's kind of weird. You could even do this freeze move with a pillar coming up from the ground. I want to actually do a full review of this game one day when I figure out how to do the fatalities, but as of now, I could not perform a single finishing move. Overall, the Atari Jaguar version of Primal Rage is not very good, and it's probably me because I'm not good at this game. Godzilla had his own one-on-one 2D style fighting game too. This was for the TurboGrafx 16 CD system. Of course, you actually had to import it from Japan because it never left that territory. Now, the good old TurboGrafx controller looked a lot like the original NES one, so trying to do moves here is pretty darn weird because only one button on the entire thing is actually meant for attacking. The other button is a jump button, so that means it's just awkward to all play. Basically, any direction you put the controller and pressing the action button usually meant that something different happened. Also, depending on how long you held the button down, would also make a different action. So if you're expecting spontaneous responses from the button input, chances are they're just not there because it has to figure out whether you're trying to do a hold attack or if you're just trying to do the quick attack. Overall, this is definitely a fun Godzilla-based game with all of your great creatures, and the intro is freaking amazeballs, but it's incredibly difficult to track down. But it wasn't all good for the king of the monsters. Check out Godzilla The Series for the Game Boy Color. This is based off the 1990s cartoon that was based off the 1999 Godzilla movie. There's a full-fledged story here that no one really cares about whatsoever. And Godzilla just walks from left to the right. You don't even see all of Godzilla on the frame, just sort of like the head and the hands and the legs. And really, this is the only thing that happens. Sometimes different vehicles stroll up and you shoot them. And other times you might do a tail whip to knock a helicopter out of the air, or maybe even a jet. But really, this is the whole game. Occasionally, another monster does try to fight you, but then you just are at a distance. You can't even move up next to them to do anything more substantial than fire fireballs and block theirs. This is definitely one of the most boring games I think I ever played, and somehow manages to be one of the worst games on the Game Boy Color, and that's really saying something. Team Monkey didn't have it too good either. This is King Kong for the good old Atari 2600. Yes, does that look like King Kong to you? Because that's what it's supposed to be. It's definitely a Donkey Kong clone. And when you start the game, your character looks like a swastika because reasons. Now, you're trying to jump over bombs. Sometimes you're trying to jump on a spring to go up, but honestly, I can't figure out what you're supposed to do other than try to get to the top of the screen because, I mean, what are you really supposed to do here? Overall, the sound effects here are terrible, and the gameplay itself is quite bad. If you do happen to get too close to the top of the screen, King Kong just goes down to the bottom of the screen. So there's that. This is just an awful game for the Atari 2600. But enough about the bad. How about my favorite Godzilla game? That, of course, is Godzilla Maximum Impact for the good old Dreamcast. It didn't come out here in the States, sadly, so you had to import it from Japan. It's a little bit like Panzer Dragoon with your whole lock-on shot technique and just Godzilla himself. You actually feel like Godzilla completely destroying the towns. And then when you get to the end of the level, you might have to fight one of the epic boss battles here. Godzilla's laser blast breath is definitely powerful here, and you could even overcharge it for a massive attack. However, don't charge it too long because it could end up backfiring and hurting you. So trying to get that balance just right of destroying things as fast as possible to try and get that super high score, or maybe even trying to get your shot off quick enough that they can't shoot you back, man, this is an epic experience. Especially because the sound effects here are tremendously great. I mean, Godzilla has never sounded any better than in this video game, and that probably includes the movies as well. The best giant monkey game is probably Peter Jackson's King Kong, the movie, the game. Yes, that is the official name of this stinking game. And I wish they wouldn't have even mentioned King Kong in the title whatsoever, because then people probably would have been expecting something else altogether, like a terrific first-person shooting action experience with some problem solving. Now, some of my biggest complaints with this game is that you are not given nearly enough ammo to take care of all the different prehistoric animals and lizards and bugs on this island. You're gonna be using a spear the majority of the time that you have to pick up from these different, like, spear spawn points. Sometimes you have to get fire on the tip and then burn down patches in order to progress your way through the game and solve some light puzzles generally like that. After about 3 hours of perpetually playing this, then you might get to see freaking King Kong, and boy is it ever satisfying when you take control of him. You get to run down and pick up your best girl and even slaughter a whole bunch of crap along the way. You'll even beat your chest as it even washes away the color from the screen itself as you heroically scream your heart out. Boy, this is a terrific game that a lot of people got turned off by because there wasn't enough King Kong in it. That's why I said they probably should have left it some other generic first-person shooter, because it's actually quite good. Now, sadly, there wasn't a whole lot of licensed King Kong games because they were too afraid of getting sued by Universal. You probably couldn't make a King Kong game today, even if it is in the public domain. However, for the Godzilla experiences, there are lots more of them, but I honestly don't think that they're worth playing outside of Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Monster Melee. The Dreamcast game is also a lot of fun, so when you end up putting the King Kong games versus Godzilla ones, you better believe that the king of all monsters, Godzilla, is gonna be the winner. But of course, that's just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I had a great time making it, and I love me some giant monsters in video games, and it doesn't get much bigger than Godzilla himself. So if you have some type of ginormously crazy idea for a video that no one else will touch, well then please leave me a comment in the comment box down below, and I'll probably get to it eventually. So until later, I will see you again, guys.